Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, criminal negligence or a lack of judgment.
What's going on? What do you need help with? What? I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Why 2 city council members want an independent investigation into the death of a 24-year-old woman after being in police custody. Plus, a victory for some senior citizens in City Heights. The city council approves curfews at a local park. And residents in Julian are voting on whether or not to keep their more than 30-year-old volunteer fire department. Why the decision is controversial. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. It's Monday, March 18th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. 2 San Diego City Council members are calling for an independent investigation. They want more information about an encounter with police and a 24-year-old woman who became unresponsive while in police custody. Aaliyah Jenkins later died at the hospital. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman explains why council members want another look at the incident. Matt?
District Attorney Summer Steffen says the arresting officer cannot be held liable for Jenkins' death. Body cam video shows Jenkins asking multiple times for help. Now 2 San Diego City Council members say they have more questions and are asking the state attorney general to investigate. We want to warn you, what you're about to see might be disturbing.
No, I'm just my stomach's turning. Okay, just stay right there.
After vomiting and telling police she was pregnant, paramedics were called off.
Hey, don't worry about it.
But then on the ride to police headquarters, Jenkins' condition seemed to change. As the drive continues, the officer asks Jenkins about her outbursts.
Miss Jenkins. Yeah. Still want water? So what's going on? Miss Jenkins? Thank you. Just want to make sure you're okay.
Council President Georgette Gomez says she's deeply troubled about the treatment of Jenkins while in police custody.
What's going on?
Gomez says the officer's body camera video clearly shows a decline in Jenkins' well-being.
Just be careful you don't hurt yourself, okay? What's going on? What's going on? What? What's going on? We're almost there and I can get you some water, okay? I'll get some... What's going on? What are you screaming about?
Councilwoman Monica Montgomery says it was heart-wrenching hearing Jenkins ask for help with no assistance.
Well, stay awake, okay?
At one point, the officer pulled over to check on her.
Okay, watch your head. Watch your head. Knock it off.
According to the district attorney's office, the officer driving Jenkins thought the noises she was making were out of frustration or a fake complaint of pain.
You're fine. You can lay down if you need to. It's not a problem.
The officer also believed Jenkins did not want to go to jail, and the whining noises could be from stomach pains after recently vomiting.
What's going on? What do you need help with? What? I can't hear you, I'm sorry. I'll get you sat up as soon as we get to there. We're 2 blocks away.
Once at police headquarters, Jenkins became unresponsive. Officers tried to revive her and paramedics were called. A medical examiner's report said Jenkins had lethal amounts of methamphetamine in her system, which ultimately caused her death. DA Summer Steffen says criminal negligence requires extreme circumstances.
It requires more than ordinary carelessness, inattention, or mistake of judgment. We have determined there is no evidence that the officer acted or failed to act in a manner that rises to the level needed to make him criminally liable.
Council members Gomez and Montgomery also want SDPD to review its paramedic and emergency treatment policy. Ebony?
Matt, what, if anything, has the state attorney general's office said about this case? And what about police now that there's this call for a further investigation?
The state attorney general's office says it does not comment on potential or ongoing investigations. SDPD, though, says it will be reviewing procedures relating to this incident. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Thanks, Matt. San Diego is choosing not to use a federal program aimed at desegregating its neighborhoods. We first told you about this decision last year. Now, KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tragesser tells us the city's housing commission is being sued for that decision.
The program would give bigger Section 8 housing vouchers to people who want to live in more expensive neighborhoods. But the San Diego Housing Commission opted not to use the program, and so a local tenant organization sued. Parisa Ijadi Matsudi is their attorney.
We are trying to stop the San Diego Housing Commission from setting the voucher levels so significantly below market rents in an effort to allow families who have Section 8 to be able to use their vouchers in outside of racially segregated areas.
Right now, the Housing Commission gives people a little more money who want to live in higher income areas, but not as much as they get under the federal program. The commission wouldn't comment on the lawsuit, but last year, its CEO, Rick Gentry, said they didn't want to use the federal program because it was too complex and might result in fewer people getting vouchers overall. Claire Tragesser, KPBS News.
It's a victory for seniors in a City Heights neighborhood who have long complained about crime at a neighborhood park. The seniors live next door and say it's a hotspot for drug use and violence. Today, the City Council heard their concerns and approved a curfew at the City Heights Square mini park. The members unanimously approved closing the park from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. Curfew at 4 other locations in North Park were also approved. A man who crashed into a tree while riding a motorized scooter has died, making it the first scooter death in San Diego. 53-year-old Christopher Conti from Georgia was riding the scooter on the sidewalk last Wednesday in Core Columbia area. According to police, he tried to make a turn, lost control, and crashed into a tree. Conti was not wearing a helmet and suffered serious head injuries. He was pronounced dead at the hospital on Friday. Residents of Julian Cuyamaca are deciding whether to protect them, who will protect them from fires. Reporter Priya Sridhar says they're voting on whether or not to keep their more than 30-year-old volunteer fire department.
The fate of the Julian Cuyamaca Fire Protection District is now in the hands of voters with Measure A. A yes vote on the initiative would dissolve the district and its volunteer force. Fire protection would then be handed over to the San Diego County Fire Authority.
And there's a lot of small government people up here who just do not trust anything bigger than their neighbor.
Michael Hart is the editor of the Julian News and has been covering the fire department for years.
The average person that lives in Julian is confused because they don't know what to believe.
The situation is confusing. Here's what's happened so far. Last year, the Fire Protection Board voted to dissolve the district and consolidate with the County Fire Authority. The county, which contracts with CAL FIRE, moved into the Julian Fire Station in June. But since then, the volunteers and their supporters gathered enough signatures in a petition to bring the issue to this week's vote.
What would happen is the San Diego County Fire Authority will take over the district. And that would then make Julian Cuyamaca the last small district to join the Fire Authority.
It gets even more complex. The board members who voted to dissolve the district have since resigned or been voted off the board. Now everyone on the board supports the volunteers. Bill Everett is one of the new board members.
We had over 800 signatures for people that wanted to see this go to the ballot, and 99.9% of those people are pro our fire district and pro our volunteers.
But that's not all there is to this issue. Money is also a concern. Last fall, Julian residents voted against a measure to increase funding for the volunteer district. Despite that, the new board believes they have enough money to sustain the volunteers.
We're just simply going to make it work. That's part of what our strategic plan is about, is to make sure that we have the financing and the funding to be able to provide the service that we say we're going to provide.
That strategic plan was not finished when we talked to him. But not everyone in Julian thinks the volunteers are the community's best option. Carl England heads up the Yes on Measure A campaign. He thinks it makes more sense to work with the county.
It doesn't seem rational to most people that we would turn down $2 million a year and a full-time 24/7, 365 days a week professional fire organization.
The union that represents CAL FIRE firefighters is also supporting Measure A. They say if it fails, there won't be an automatic aid agreement for responding to emergencies in the area. Patrick Walker is the vice president of the union chapter for San Diego County. He says CAL FIRE would respond to wildfires, but
what it is the 99 other calls we have to go to. The person that crashes on a sled or crashes on the 78 coming to visit or went to go get a pie, and gets on a head-on collision. Those are the calls that we need to be concerned about.
Ballots in the special election are due on Tuesday and are set to be counted on Thursday. Priya Sridhar, KPBS News.
Volunteers are currently manning the Julian Fire Station while they wait for the outcome of the election. The San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce is heading to Mexico City at the end of the month with nearly 100 U.S. and Mexican business and community leaders. KPBS border reporter Jean Guerrero explains what's happening.
This Mexico City trip will be the Chamber's first under Mexico's new president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador. They'll be advocating for projects to benefit the San Diego Baja region, such as federal funds for Otay 2, a toll-operated port of entry still in the planning stages. Paola Avila of the Chamber says Mexico's new president has already taken steps to benefit the border region, such as cutting the border value-added tax in half.
The new president of Mexico, López Obrador, recognizes the border region as an economic engine, something that actually in the past has not been done.
The delegation will also be pushing for more action on the cross-border pollution problem in the Tijuana River Valley and finalizing the new USMCA trade agreement, which has yet to be ratified. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
Today, the Supreme Court decided it will not consider San Diego's pension reform Proposition B case. Last year, the state ruled that the city broke state labor laws when it placed the measure on the ballot. And here to explain what it means for the city of San Diego is KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen. Andrew, welcome.
Thanks, Ebony.
So, Andrew, what's the issue being brought up by the labor unions?
So they have long argued that the city was required to meet and confer with them before placing Proposition B on the ballot. Now, Proposition B was a citizens' initiative. It was placed on the ballot via a signature gathering campaign. The city was not officially sponsoring it, but the mayor at the time in 2012, Jerry Sanders, had strongly campaigned in favor of it. He often used city resources even to campaign in favor of it. And so the unions had argued basically that the city was, in fact, in a way, sponsoring this initiative, and that meant that they had to first meet with the unions, figure out if they could come up with some alternative through a negotiation process about how to change the city pensions. The city didn't do that, and ultimately this made its way all the way up to the state Supreme Court last year, and the state Supreme Court ruled in the union's favor. They said that the city did in fact violate state labor laws, and it should have met with the unions first before placing this on the ballot.
And did the courts come up with a solution?
They did not. They actually sent this back down to a court of appeal, the 4th District Court of Appeal here in San Diego, and they ordered that lower court to determine how to fix this problem. So the city violated the law, and the lower court now has to decide how do we fix that violation. There are a couple options that court could take. One of them would be to take all of the employees that were hired since 2012 and make them part of the city's pension system. So that would there are a couple different ways that could go. They could possibly use the money that the city workers had been getting in their 401k accounts and just turn those into pensions. We don't know exactly how that would play out because it would be the process of a long negotiation as well. They also have to determine what to do about Proposition B. Prop B is still in the city charter, even though this violation took place according to the state court. And so will the Court of Appeal invalidate it? Will they require the various parties to work out some other fix? Will the issue come before city voters again? Those are a lot of the questions that we simply don't have the answer to right now.
So at this point, it's almost a moot point, but why did city officials feel that the Supreme Court should consider the case in the first place?
Right. So Mayor Sanders and the city had long argued that he was supporting Proposition B as a private citizen, not as the official mayor of San Diego. The High Court of the state, the California Supreme Court, ruled that that argument ignores the fact that he is the city's chief executive officer, the chief labor negotiator, and he has certain obligations when it comes to state labor laws. You can't just decide when you're speaking as a private citizen and when you're speaking as mayor, especially when you're kind of muddling those two things throughout the campaign. And so the city had asked this U.S. Supreme Court to review this case on First Amendment grounds, saying that, you know, his campaigning for the measure was protected First Amendment free speech. The High Court didn't give a reason why it declined that argument, but there is a longstanding precedent that there are limits to the First Amendment, and this appears to be one of them.
So the state court decision stands. What happens next?
Right. So the Court of Appeal has 90 days to issue a ruling. That will come sometime the next 3 months. Any ruling that court issues, however, can also be appealed to the state Supreme Court again. So this could be, we could be watching this story for several years to come.
And what about taxpayers and the bottom line as far as how much this will cost taxpayers? Any projections?
Yeah, we don't really have great estimates about how much this will cost if the city is in fact required to create pensions for all of these employees that were hired after Prop B passed. If they're allowed to use the money in those 401k accounts to add to the pension system, then the burden to taxpayers would be a little bit lighter. But one thing that is also something to keep in mind when we're talking about taxpayers is the city lost this legal battle, and that means that the unions can request the city pay their legal fees, and these legal fees have been racking up since 2011. And so the city, in losing this case and violating the state labor laws, has a price to pay, and the longer that this case is drawn out, the higher those legal fees could be.
Thank you for following this story and explaining it all to us. Andrew Bowen, KPBS Metro reporter, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ebony.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, New Zealand reflects on what could have been done to prevent the massacre at the mosques. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
The Earth Connections Camp in Salt Lake City is a program designed for Native American children. The idea is to empower them with a mix of cultural and environmental knowledge. And Katie Garrett from SciTech Now takes us behind the scenes.
The reason why we have this camp is twofold. The first is to get these students involved in their education, to have a baseline in terms of what they need to learn and, you know, some of the challenges that they have in education. And the other piece is the cultural piece, which is things that they need to learn of their background and where they came from and who they are. So we have a mixture of the cultural piece mixed with the STEM piece, and at the end of the day, hopefully they can mesh these two programs together.
So like yesterday we had 100 pennies and we had to decide which percentage of the water on Earth goes to like oceans, lakes, rivers, or streams and stuff. That was fun.
Well, we try to keep it really interactive. We want the kids to not just listen, but do. So we try to have them participate with the activities as much as we can.
We've brought our children up here to the Earth Connections camp for almost 8 years now. A very great opportunity for our youth. Most of our children for the Urban Indian Center, they do have limited access to daycare or don't have access to programs that are designed for American Indian children. So it's a great opportunity for our children to get involved with the STEM and get involved with understanding our cultural values.
I thought this was important from the very beginning because Indian tribes have ownership of many, many water rights and land rights on our native lands. And it's important for our youth to be able to know how this impacts their community. They have to know legally what impacts them as Indian nations. And going into the future, we have so many of our natural resources, water, land, minerals, oil, whatever it may be, with all kinds of companies around us just waiting to get their hands on it. We as Indian people need to be able to protect our rights to these natural resources. So Earth Connection is a great way for our community to empower themselves. We mix cultural information with STEM teachings about water, about land, about plants, animals, and indigenous peoples. And the whole state of Utah. We're right here in this beautiful, beautiful place that we all share. It's good for us to know the history of this place, who lived here.
Thread it through. I'm still going backwards.
Wait.
Yes, I would love it. You just keep going.
It really makes me feel happy because we were here and we helped make this country great.
This camp has helped me with history classes, because I'm when I go and learn about Native Americans, I've already known because of this camp and my grandma and stuff, so it just I already know about it, so it's just fun to see what other teachers say about it.
It makes me feel a ton better to just understand what it means for me and my family and everything, and makes my family happy and me happy.
It was a warm weekend and start of the work week, but change is on the way. Meteorologist Erin Calandra shows us what's ahead for the rest of the week.
Good evening. I hope you had a wonderful Monday. Take a look at this satellite. Not much going on. It is a quiet day. Temperatures in the 70s today. Lots of sunshine. A beautiful day to be outdoors. And much of California looks kind of like that. Nice and clear. Notice what's going on in the Pacific. That's going to be our next storm moving in by midweek. We are going to see some showers creeping in. So for tonight, we're at 55 degrees for our low, clear with a moonlit sky. You'll see all sorts of stars if you're looking. It's going to be like that across the whole county. Oceanside at 50 degrees tonight for the low. Ramona at 44 and Mount Laguna reaching 41 degrees. Tomorrow, expect to see another beautiful day. It's nice and warm. We're slightly above average temperatures, mainly in the 70s, and we have that sunshine. So it's looking beautiful for anything outdoors tomorrow. A-OK. Oceanside at 65, Ramona at 71, El Cajon coming in at 74 degrees for those highs. And Borrego Springs, we're in the mid-80s with sunny skies. Now expect to see this low pressure system come driving in off the Pacific on Wednesday. That means we'll see some showers, and that will continue into Thursday as well. After that, we dry out and we'll have our warmer temperatures back. So here we are for the coast. Showers on Wednesday, spotty, and more sunshine with some leftover showers on Thursday. Notice temperatures dipping to 62. Friday and Saturday, it will be sunnier, and we are slowly getting a little bit warmer, up to 65 by Saturday. Inland, you'll see those spotty showers Wednesday, and more clouds, maybe a couple of showers lingering on Thursday at 61 for the high. But by the weekend, again, it's sunny, and we're in those upper 60s. In the deserts, it's going to be pretty cool. Cooler trend down to 68 for the high on Thursday, but we do expect you to stay dry, just becoming a bit chillier, and we'll be in those mid-70s by the weekend. And in the mountains, we could see snow, but that's going to stay above 6,000 feet. So a couple of showers, mixed snow on Thursday, sunnier skies, and in the 50s by the weekend. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Have a great night.
Now for a look at today's top stories. 2 San Diego City Council members are calling for an independent investigation into the treatment of a woman who died after being in police custody. Georgette Gomez and Monica Montgomery want the California Attorney General to do its own independent investigation and SDPD to review its paramedic and emergency treatment policy. It's a victory for seniors in City Heights who complained about crime at a neighborhood park. Today, the City Council approved a curfew at the City Heights Square mini park. It will be closed from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. A man who crashed into a tree while riding a motorized scooter on Friday has died, making it the first scooter death in the city of San Diego. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.